Welcome back, everyone, to this week's edition of the Spread Option here on the CFB Nation podcast, brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Happy Thursday, everybody. We missed you last week. Hope everybody had a happy Thanksgiving. Hope everybody had a fun and safe holiday. We're back to talk some lines. It is conference championship weekend, ladies and gentlemen. And even though our favorite team is kind of waiting at home, patiently waiting for Sunday at noon, there are still some impactful games and very interesting betting lines. It was tough to find like dogs of the week this week when the lines were so close. So I went with like a player prop, you know.
I love it.
So we'll see. But Vince, how you doing, man?
I'm here, man. And it was a very interesting like holiday, break time. Like we didn't have a show because it was Thursday. And like we talked about doing it on Wednesday, we talked about doing it early on Friday, and it was just like, you know what? It's a holiday. Like we're gonna take the week off. It just is what it is. But there was a lot of good football last weekend. A lot of opportunities for me to have lost my lock of the week and dog of the week. And so I'm kind of glad we didn't do a show. But we're back at it. This is the championship week, so there's some really intriguing matchups coming up, and obviously they will have a ripple effect all along the college football playoff and what that picture is going to look like. And let's see, we'll know in Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 2.5 days, basically 3 days. And we'll kind of know what that picture looks like. And we'll have more spread option shows here moving forward because we're going to have a week of 4 games the weekend of the 19th and 20th. So you can guarantee that there'll be a show on like the 18th, go leading up into it. So this isn't the last show of the season. This is just the last show of like the regular-ish season, right?
Oh, don't you guys worry. If there's money to be spent, we will be back.
I've been doing a lot of spending recently. That's the problem. Not a lot.
I've been on an absolute heater, but in the NFL, and this is a college football show. So
this is true. But hey, your heater in the NFL pays for your college football bets. That's how that works.
That's very true. My heater in the NFL is kind of keeping me afloat in my college football bets. I think that's more accurate. But folks, we're going to stay consistent with what we've always done. We're going to recap actually the games that we talked about 2 weeks ago because we haven't done our kind of recap of how that went. And then we're going to dive into the countdown. We're talking about 4 of the conference championship games, the AAC. We're talking about the Big 12 championship game, the SEC, and the Big 10. So a lot of fun to get to this evening. So let's go part 1, hit or miss. There were 4 games we talked about a couple weeks ago. Now, these games, for anybody that may be confused, were not last weekend. It was the weekend prior. And the first game that we talked about was Missouri on the road against Oklahoma. And just to give everybody a quick heads up, in all of 4 games that we talked about, we went 50-50.
Right down the middle, man. Right down the middle.
Literally right down the middle. So if you made separate bets with these player props, like individual bets with them, you're welcome. If you didn't, I'm sorry. / kind of your fault. Don't parlay them. But in all seriousness, the first 2 player props that we talked about in Missouri at Oklahoma, John Mateer under 217.5 passing yards that hit. He finished with 173, and John Mateer's under might start looking real enticing come playoff season. Because, Vince, there's really no way around it. That's a putrid offense.
Well, not according to people on Twitter. They
That's
think
true.
that Oklahoma is a juggernaut on both sides of the football. And I put out a tweet. I said, look, man, dear College Football Playoff Committee, please have Notre Dame go on the road to Norman in week 1. Sincerely, every Notre Dame fan. So got some traction on that tweet for obvious reasons, both negatively and positively. But it's fun. I just like poking the bear. So it's good times.
Oh, man. Well, unfortunately, like I said, we went 50-50 in all these player parlays. And the second one I talked about Ahmad Hardy anytime touchdown, the running back from Missouri, that missed. He did have 57 yards on the ground, didn't finish with a touchdown, though, however. So 50-50 in the Missouri-Oklahoma game. Same storyline with Arkansas. Now, I'm not going to blame us for missing this first player prop. We talked about Talon Green over 203.5 passing yards, which I thought was ridiculously low, especially given Texas's defense. He got hurt like in the first half, and he finished with 118 passing yards, and then the backup came in and threw for an additional 206 yards.
He was on pace to shatter this number. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Absolutely shatter this number. And if you took the total passing yards, you would have had it by a long shot. You would have had it by over 120 yards. So, yeah, this was a really, really good bet. The problem is you can't predict injuries.
Nope. Which we've honestly gotten pretty lucky, Vince. Injuries haven't really hurt us that much this season. I don't know what happened. I mean, Jesse Stiers comes on the show. We get our first, ties of the year, like avoided ones. Now Taylor Green's getting hurt. Good Lord. Come on, Jesse. But no, it was a good show when Jesse Stiers was on here. The second player prop that we talked about was Texas's wide receiver DeAndre Moore over 44.5 receiving yards. That ended up hitting. I was shocked at the time that the line was set that low. He finished with 3 catches for 74 yards, and he hit on one play. He had a 46-yard reception in that game. That's a good spot to be.
Yeah, no kidding.
Definitely.
USC Oregon is what we had next. Again, a 50-50 situation. Trev, what do we do here?
We talked about 2 key players, both of them for USC. We talked about King Miller's over 72.5 rushing yards. Rationale was he had been over like 80 yards rushing in every game except for Notre Dame. The Ducks said, I see your 73 yards that he got against Notre Dame. Hold my beer. The Ducks completely shut him down. He had 15 rushing attempts for 30 yards, Vince.
2 yards a carry.
Yep. So I would be lying if I said he was close to that 72.5, fortunately. But we did hit on a Mekhi Lemon anytime touchdown. He was hot. I was riding the hot hand. He only finished with 34 receiving yards, but he had 7 catches. One of them went for a touchdown. It's a good beat right there, man.
Doesn't matter how far the touchdown is, as long as they get in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, buddy. Pitt, Georgia Tech. This is the one that went a direction that we might not have been expecting, but apparently, Pitt decided to actually play in this game. So Pitt ended up getting the W, and we went 50-50 again in the picks.
We did. We talked about Kenny Johnson, wide receiver for Pitt. His over-under was set at 49.5. We said to take his over. That ended up hitting. He finished with 6 catches, 91 yards, and a touchdown. So he cleared 49.5 with ease. But unfortunately, Eric Rivers, Georgia Tech's main go-to wide receiver, his over-under was set at 54.5, and that did not hit. Missed. He finished with 2 receptions for 20 yards. So unfortunately, we went 50 in that game as well.
Not much went well for Georgia Tech in that game. So, I mean, it is what it is.
The game ended. That went well for Georgia Tech.
That went very well for them. Yes, they got to move on to another week. Yeah.
They did. They sure did. Well, Vince, let's move on and start talking some locks of the week. Now, sticking with the 50-50 trend.
Seriously.
We went 50-50 in our locks of the week. And I'm starting to stretch my legs a little bit, Vince. Starting to stretch my legs a little bit.
I'm not. That's a problem.
Well, buddy, this week's Lock of the Week conversation is going to be interesting, so we'll see who gets the last laugh after this championship weekend. But for Locks of the Week, mine, I had Notre Dame over 43.5 total points against Syracuse. And if you guys remember, that hit, and it hit in a big way. Notre Dame ended up scoring 70 points, and they were at 35 total points after the first quarter.
Yeah, that one looked real good real quick. Yeah.
Yep, sure did. Vince, how about you?
Yeah, my lock of the week, I went off the beaten path a little bit and trying to change my luck, to be perfectly honest with you. And so I went with the parlay, and I went with Love for 2 touchdowns, Price for a touchdown, and Malachi Fields for a touchdown. And I really liked the way things were trending. Things were going well. Notre Dame was putting up points. They were scoring lots of touchdowns. Unfortunately, 3 of those touchdowns were defensive and special teams. And there was only 1 passing touchdown, if I remember correctly. And that was not to Malachi Fields. The other 2 parts of the parlay hit. Jeremiah Love had 2 touchdowns. Price had a touchdown. So those things were all fantastic. So I missed it by 1 part of the leg, which I swear to everything that is holy, that has pretty much been my year. Missing by 1 leg. That just seems to happen every single week. But it happened here, so I did not win my lock of the week. Again, we'll see what happens this week, but I'm not doing great on my locks of the week.
The life of a better. Slap it on a T-shirt, Vince. We got to get it working. Dogs of the week, however, did go in Vince's favor, but unfortunately, like I said, we went 50-50 split here. It did not go in my favor. I went with Arkansas plus 5.5 on the road against Texas. That ended up missing. Up to that point, Arkansas played every SEC opponent within single digits, and of course, the week that I decided to bet on them, Longhorns won by 15, which, again, pretty par for the course.
Right, seriously. And who would have ever guessed that Arkansas would be within single digits of every SEC opponent that they played, considering the record that they had, because they lost every one of those games.
Sure.
So that's tough. But my dog of the week finally hit. I finally got one. Virginia Tech was plus 18.5 at Miami. It hit. the Hurricanes' best effort throwing bombs with under a minute to go with their first team offense in. They did it, but the Hokies still covered because they only lost by 17. So got 1.5 in our favor on that one. So light it up, Green. Finally, I got a dog to hit. It's been a minute, and I finally get off the 7 mark. I was sitting at 7, I think, for like 4 or 5 straight weeks. And so finally I get to that magic number of 8 in my dogs of the week. So that's fantastic. So recapping where we are record wise for player props, we're over 500, 55, 52 and 1. So that's, hey, like I said, if you've been betting along with us, you're in the money, by the way. Trev's lock of the week, he's at 8 and 6, so he's 2 games over 500. My lock of the week, I'm 5 and 8, so I'm 3 games under 500. And remember, I wasn't here that 1 week, so Jesse took my spot. And then dogs of the week, Trevor, 6 and 8, so you're 2 games under 500. I'm 8 and 5, so I'm 3 games over, so feeling good about that spread at the moment.
Good spot to be in, Vince.
Yes, sir. Great spot.
Definitely a good spot to be in. Well, let's get to part 2 of today's show, the countdown. We got 4 games, and the first one's actually on Friday night. It's conference championship weekend.
Yes.
And we are going to be talking about the AAC conference championship game, which features number 24 North Texas versus number 22 Tulane. Vince, big 3 spread. North Texas is favored by 2.5. Obviously, North Texas on the money line, minus 134 odds. The over-under is set at a hefty 66.5.
Man. Yeah. Lots of scoring going on in this game, at least the predicted manner of it. I tell you what, this is going to be an interesting game because Tulane has everything riding on it. And frankly, so does North Texas for that matter, because the winner of this game has a great shot of being in the college football playoff. And right now, Tulane is the higher ranked team. They're ranked 20th. North Texas is 24. And Tulane is projected to be in, but they're not favored in this game. They're not favored in this game, which is very interesting. So this is going to be a fun game to watch on a Friday night. I think both of the group of 5, group of 6, whatever it is, both of those games are on Friday night. So there's going to be some decent football going on Friday night. And we're going to know kind of who has a shot at being in the college football playoff before any of the games kick on Saturday.
I am very, very excited for the AAC championship game. I mean, really, Vince, it's as Notre Dame fans, that and like the Big Ten championship are the only ones that we can just watch as fans.
I know.
Like the outcome just doesn't really dig, and I'm excited for it. And this should be a good one. So, got 2 player props in here, and really all the props that we're talking about in this game are quarterback focused. And the first one is Jake Retzlaff, the quarterback for Tulane. I like him for an anytime touchdown. He has 14 rushing touchdowns on the season, and he scored 7 rushing touchdowns in his last 6 games. Honestly, Vince, I don't really remember him being that much of a dual threat at BYU. I think that just might be my lack of memory of him. But when I saw he had 14 passing touchdowns, I was shocked. But, having 28 total on the year, it's not bad.
Yeah, he's kind of picked up where he left off when he was at BYU, because he was the BY Jew, I believe is what they were calling him. And that was, and he had that weird exit from BYU, and he finds his way to Tulane, and he's got a chance at a conference championship. So good on him. Good for him.
Good on him. Good on him. That's the first player prop that I like. The other one is the quarterback for North Texas. And shout out to my buddy Kane. He is a big Drew Mestemaker fan.
Okay.
Huge Drew. Yeah, huge Drew. And his story is awesome if you've paid attention to like how he's got to where he's at. But this is a big number, Vince. But I like his alt passing yards at 300.
Oh, alternate passing yards. Okay.
Yep. So his line was actually set at like 315 the last time I looked. So I'm going alternate. Yeah. 300 passing yards for this kid is in the minus. It's like minus 166 for 300.
Apparently that's light work for Mestemaker. Okay. Yeah, got it.
Evidently. But reason why is he had 366 passing yards and 469 in his last 2 outings respectively. Okay. He's going up against the defense in Tulane ranks number 119th in the country in pass defense in yards per game allowed, and they've allowed 20 passing touchdowns this season, which is 92nd in the country.
I like that one.
So, Drew Mestemaker, baby, 300 passing yards. Let's do it.
Okay. Heard it here first. I like that. What are you staying away from? You're staying in the quarterback realm, right?
I am. I'm going back to Tulane's quarterback, Jake Retzlaff, and his over-under passing yards is set at 237.5. And look, he's been hit or miss week in and week out. He had 291 in the last week of the regular season. And then the week before that, he had 231. And then the week before that, he had 241. So this is one of those where it's just your typical, could he hit? Sure, it's championship weekend. You need all hands on deck, but I'm not going to put money on it.
Yep, I hear that. That's a good one to stay away from. Game number 2, we're heading over to the Big 12. BYU against Texas Tech, a rematch from earlier on in the season. Texas Tech favored by 12.5. I think that number has actually gotten bigger as we get closer to the game. I think it was 11.5 prior to this. Texas Tech on the money line, minus 550. The over-under set at 49.5, which, 10 years ago in the Big 12, that number would have been probably 20 points higher than that. But this is the new look Big 12 that actually has defense. And so, what are your thoughts on the Big 3?
I mean, look, man, based on how the last game went, I understand why the spread is where it's at. I think the final score of last game was 29-7, and I've been saying it all week. The score was 29-7 because I think Texas Tech allowed it to be 29-7. They faltered in the red zone. They were scoring field goals instead of touchdowns, and BYU didn't put their first touchdown on the board until there were 7 minutes left in the game. So all of those kind of are ingredients to me. Our buddy Archer, our resident Ohio State fan in the chat, he said, give me Tech to cover. I like it.
Yeah.
I like it, man. So
I want them to cover just to shut people up, to be honest with you. All the conspiracy theorists out there that are like, Texas Tech is going to lay down so that the Big 12 has 2 teams in the college football playoff. Texas Tech is not going to lay down. There's too much on the line for Texas Tech. They, a bye in the playoff. They've never won a conference championship ever in their history. They've never run an outright conference championship. Mm-hmm. They're not going to lay down for BYU. Come on, folks. Come on.
No. And I think maybe you and I were talking about this on Tuesday, but programs are not as fickle as fan bases. They don't view it that way. Like not many teams view conferences the way that, like Archer, you're in the chat. You're a resident Ohio State fan. Were you happy when Michigan won the national championship in 2023 because it's the Big Ten? Vince,
no.
You're a Bears fan. Are you happy when the Packers have a good postseason because you're the NFC North? It's not as much as what fans make it out to be, in my opinion. Right. Give me Texas Tech to cover. That's not one of the player props, but I'm there, man. I'm really there.
Unless you're Pat Narduzzi, because apparently he's just all ACC all day. So there's that.
I don't pay attention too much to that impoverished conference. But anyways, got some player props. Got some player props to talk about in this one, Vince. First one, Bear Bachmeier, his over-under passing yards, a quarterback for BYU. His over-under is set at 183.5 passing yards. I think the Cougars are going to have to throw in this one if it's remotely resembles their last outing. He finished with 188 passing yards when they faced Texas Tech on the road the first time. I think he has a similar performance this weekend.
This is an interesting one because, BYU is not going to be BYU if Bear can't run the football. And I do think that's going to be the number one priority of Texas Tech is to limit the run game and stop Bear from running the football. And so he's going to have to throw it. How successful will he be? That's the tough part for me. I'm nervous about this one, to be perfectly honest with you, but I understand the logic behind it. So I'm good with it. But man, I feel like that's even a big number for him.
That's what I was thinking, man. I mean, it's a risky one. And some of it is just the feel of like, look, dude, it's championship weekend. Sure, BYU is going to have to try to win this one. BYU is fighting for their playoff lives. I think win or lose, Tech is still in.
Personally, absolutely.
I agree. Me. So I agree. BYU's fighting for their playoff lives in this one. They're going to air it out even if it's 30-0. Bear Bachmeier still going to be slinging it over the yard. Second one here, Vince. Caleb Douglas, wide receiver for Texas Tech, their go-to guy. His over-under is set at 61.5 receiving yards. He had 127 and 90 in his last outings, respectively. Now, I get why the line is where it is, though. He had 12 receiving yards against BYU the last time. Yeah, a whopping 12. That being said, if you go and you look at his stats over the course of the season, that's an outlier. I think Baron Morton feeds him this weekend. I like Caleb Douglas over 61.5 receiving yards.
I like that one. I like that one a lot. I also like your keep away, by the way, just throwing it out there.
Thank you. I appreciate you. We're going back to Bear Bachmeier, quarterback for BYU. His over-under rushing yards is set at 31.5. And the last time they played, he finished with 12 rushing yards due to sacks. He finished with 4 rushing yards due to sacks, basically the same reason, against UCF. BYU's offensive line has been shaky over the last couple of weeks, and Texas Tech has an elite defensive line, an elite defense really. It's headlined by pass rusher David Bailey, who they actually got from Stanford. With sacks going against rushing yards for quarterbacks in college, I am not touching Bear Bachmeier rushing yards.
Smart. I think that's actually really smart because, again, Texas Tech is going to try to take away the run game, and they're going to start with him. And they did it last time, and I think they're going to do it again this time. And so any number at 31, look, 31's a one good scramble, to be honest with you. But then you add in sacks and everything else, I don't see it being the case. So I think this is a really good one to stay away from. Let's jump over to the SEC because it just means more. We got Georgia against Alabama. Georgia favored by 2.5. And the money line set at -134 for the dogs. Over under 48.5. Thoughts on that one?
Yeah, this is going to be a real interesting game. I'm not going to dive too much into the big three because I have a feeling that some of it might come up a little bit later. Just a feeling, an inkling, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
But this is a really interesting matchup, Vince. The over-under really does intrigue me because on paper, this should be a shootout. Georgia's defense hasn't looked like the defense we thought it was going to. Alabama's defense just hasn't been the defense that it was advertised to be. Yet the last time they played, both offenses struggled to move the ball with any sort of consistency. So the over-under in this game is just real weird. Like it's not my keep away, but I don't know if I'm sniffing the over-under in this game, Vince. I don't know about it.
Yeah, that's a good one to stay away from, to be perfectly honest with you. But we've got a couple of player props that look good. What do you think?
Yeah, man, I'm a big fan. I'm going back to the well with this one. Oscar Delp, one of the tight ends for Georgia, his over-under is set at 17.5 receiving yards, which I think is just extremely low for a Georgia tight end. Georgia's tight ends are some of the best weapons in their pass offense, all due respect to Zachariah Branch. And Bama's pass defense is overrated, in my opinion. I really think that it is. And so, in their last matchup, Gunnar Stockton wasn't on his game from a passing perspective. I don't think that happens again. He's kind of been humming the last couple of weeks. So I really like Oscar Delp in this one. You couldn't even bet on Lawson Lucky, their other tight end. Oscar Delp was supposed to be their tight end one last year until Lawson Lucky burst on the scene. Oscar Delp, it's one of those where it's kind of like the Eli Raridan thing. He either just doesn't get a reception or he clears 17.5 by 30 yards.
Right, exactly.
And I'm going with the stage, the magnitude of this game. I like Oscar Delp over 17.5.
I dig it. I see you got one here for Isaiah Horton as well.
I do. This one's pretty simple. He's become a go-to target in the red zone for Alabama's passing offense. He's had at least 3 receptions in 2 of the last 3 games, and the only one that he didn't was against Eastern Illinois. I think that's just a situation where they just didn't have to target one of their better weapons on offense. I mean, truthfully, but I mean, against Oklahoma, he had over 3, and then against Auburn in the Iron Bowl, he had over 3, and I think he had like 2 touchdown receptions. I think in the Iron Bowl. So I like Isaiah Horton in this one, Vince.
Nice. So it's an alternate 3+ receptions. What was it set at?
It was. I think it was set at 4.5.
Oh wow. Okay.
Either he was 4.5 or Jeremy Bernard was 4.5. But 3 is the line that I really like, and the odds are still favorable. I think it was like -176 for 3 alt receptions.
Okay. All right. I got you. What are we staying away from in this one?
I'm going back to the Alabama wide receiving core. And if you've been watching this offense at all throughout this season, Ryan Williams over-under is set at 44.5 receiving yards, and I'm just not touching it. He's been so hit or miss this season. He didn't record a catch against Auburn. I don't remember him getting hurt. He just didn't record a catch, which I thought was really interesting. He only had 45 against Eastern Illinois, 33 against Oklahoma, and the last time they played Georgia, he only had 43 receiving yards. I understand that it's like big stage, all that, but look, Ryan Williams leads the SEC in drops over the last 2 seasons. A guy like Ryan Williams, you start to question what kind of confidence Ty Simpson has in a guy like that when he also has Jeremy Bernard and Isaiah Horton. I'm not touching Ryan Williams this weekend. It's
a big spot too. Your quarterback's going to go to their go-to guys that they trust in big time spots. And this is a big time spot for the Tide. All right, let's move on to game number 4. We're going into your neck of the woods here in the Indy area. Show off that shirt. Show off the shirt.
This is the only game that I get to be a fan. Get to be a fan, baby. Just had to remind people who the state champions are. This weekend, Archer. This weekend, Archer. I'm riding with you, bro.
That's right.
I'm riding with you.
Yeah, seriously. Let's go. Let's go. So game 4, obviously Big Ten championship, number 1 Ohio State against number 2 IU. The Buckeyes are favored by only 4.5, which is an interesting line all by itself. And Ohio State, obviously on the money line, minus 190. The over-under set at 47.5. So they're expecting a fairly low-scoring game in this one, which is interesting. What are your thoughts on all of that?
I understand why the over-under is set what it is. These are 2 elite defenses. Like, I'm still questioning IU's offense in big games. They didn't look that great against Iowa. They didn't look that great against Oregon. They didn't look that great against Penn State. And so their offense has been really questionable for me, but their defense is absolutely legitimate. So I get why the over-under is what it is. I honestly love Ohio State's spread here. And yes, I'm talking about that as a fan standpoint. But look, man, when I look at Ohio State, this is the first Big Ten championship that they've played in like 4 years. And I know that they've been itching to get back. I understand they won the national championship last year, but when you coach at Ohio State, you're expected to do 3 things: beat Michigan, win the Big Ten, win a national championship. And so far in the last calendar year, they've checked 2 of those 3 things out of those boxes. And I'm willing to bet that Ryan Day and the rest of that team are really itching to get that 3rd box checked. So I like the spread in this one too.
Yeah, I think Ohio State's going to win. I think they are going to cover here as well. So if I was going to take one of the big 3, that would be the one. I mean, we'll see how it goes. Obviously, we've dissected and talked about strength of schedule and teams that everybody's played, all of those things. This is going to be a test for both teams. I just think Ohio State's ready for the test a little bit more than IU. And we'll see what happens. So, I mean, it's not like IU won't be able to bounce back in the playoffs. So,
right.
This is just about seeding. And to be honest with you, no matter who wins this game, they're both getting buys. So, I don't think it makes that much of a difference in the first place. So, this may just be a fun game to watch. So, I'm looking forward to it for sure. All right. Player props. Where we at?
Our guy Stymie is Signetti versus Day, the 2 most lovable coaches in America. That's very well played, my friend.
Facts.
That is very well played. Player props. I actually dipped into something new that we haven't talked about this year. You can now tie a same game parlay with a longest reception. And the one that I like here is Carnell Tate. His over-under was set at 27.5 yards. In 7 games this season, Carnell Tate has caught a pass of 33 yards or more. These defenses are both elite, like I talked about. I think this will come down to who can make the biggest play downfield, and I think Carnell Tate is one of the best downfield threats in the country. I like him over 27.5 yards for his longest reception. Big fan.
You know that Ohio State's going to try to push the ball down the field. You know that that's what's going to happen. So I didn't even know this was a possibility, and I love it. I think that's fantastic. What else you got? You got an under coming over here.
I do. And the fan side of me is creeping in here, but I have data to back it up. I'm taking Fernando Mendoza's under 1.5 passing touchdowns. I know that seems low, and I know what type of offense IU runs, but look, Ohio State has allowed 5 passing touchdowns all season. Their pass defense is absolutely elite. Then you go back and look at what Fernando Mendoza has done. He had 1 passing touchdown against Oregon and then 1 against Penn State, and those 2 teams have comparable defensive talent. They're not as good of defenses as Ohio State. Let me paint that perfectly clear. But when you look at talent level, Oregon and Penn State have the most comparable talent. I mean, it's not Illinois. It's not Wisconsin. It's not Rutgers. It's definitely not Purdue. So I like Fernando Mendoza's under here.
Okay. Taking the under. I like it. I didn't realize Ohio State's only given up 5 touchdowns this year through the air. Like, that's crazy. It's a crazy number. So that says a lot about their defense. It says something about their schedule, but I think it says more about their defense than it does their schedule. So I like the under here. That's a good one. What are you staying away from here?
This one I'm kind of grouping together, and I've tried to stay away from just overarching keep-aways, but this one is just too tough. I'm not touching rushing props for either team. I'm just not. I know that's really, really broad, but these 2 rush defenses have been elite all season. They've allowed a combined 9 rushing touchdowns all season, and they both rank in the top 4 in yards allowed per game. I'm not touching either. And I like some of these running backs. Bo Jackson, Archer's been telling me about Bo Jackson for the last 2 months, and I've came around to him. But I think that this will be a game where who can make the biggest plays downfield in the pass game.
Right.
I don't know how much rushing is going to be involved. I'm not touching anybody's over-under here.
That's fair. That's fair. I agree. I think this game is going to be one through the air. I mean, look at where the talent level is for Ohio State. That's where they're going to go. They're going to lean on their talent, which makes perfect sense. They've got 2 elite wide receivers. Why would you not go to those guys, especially in a big game like this? So I agree with you. Now, that's not to say that a run couldn't break out. There could be a long run here, but that's the point that's the whole point of why you're staying away from it, because it could be just banging your head against the wall, banging your head against the wall, banging your head against the wall, and then all of a sudden you break one for 30 or 35 or whatever the case may be, and all of a sudden you hit an over, and you were averaging 2 yards a carry. So it's like that's why you stay away from this kind of thing, because it's not a guarantee situation. I agree with you. I like it.
Nope. And knowing how these 2 offensive play, it's going to be bang your head against the wall, bang your head against the wall, play action over the top to Carnell Tate to hit his 27.5 over long.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. See, there you go. Bam, bam, bam. Hit. Love it. All right. So those are our 4 games that we're talking about. Let's jump into the lock of the week. And this is where it gets interesting, Trevor. It gets very, very interesting. So first of all, a little peek behind the curtain here. Trevor he has his stuff done early, and when he shares the doc with me, he's got his lock of the week in there already. And so I read his lock of the week, and I was like, I'm ready to argue this. Like, I'm ready to go to the mattresses on this particular argument. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to let him tell you what it is, and then I will tell you how I went with my lock of the week, and it will all make sense to everybody.
It's a good preview into this, Vince. It's a good preview into this. Look, I'm going to start this out by saying that before Notre Dame fans come at me, this does not mean that I'm rooting for Alabama. However, my lock of the week is Alabama money line over Georgia. Wow. At the end of the day, this comes down to odds. And I had to take the fan hat off for a second. I had to remove myself from the Notre Dame piece and look at this like if I was a Texas Tech fan, and I lived in Lubbock, Texas, because I think that's where all of their fans only live. And
apparently the internet works there too, which I'm a little surprised about, but whatever.
HughesNet's great. But I'm sorry. So when I look at this game, I had to look at it from just a betting perspective. And when I do look at this from a betting perspective, Kirby Smart's 1-7 against Alabama. He's 0-3 in SEC championship games against the Crimson Tide. When you look at how these 2 teams have been playing, I agree it should favor Georgia. I would also argue that last year, when you look at how these teams have been playing, it favored Georgia. And I would also argue that after Florida State beat Alabama in week 1 of this season, this year's game in Athens also favored Georgia. I think Kirby Smart has an Alabama problem. So I'm going with Alabama money line here. But this is the one that I would not be upset about if I was wrong. Plus, I already have a cushion in a 2-lead game on Vince, so if I lose it, then that's okay.
That's fair. That's actually a really good way to look at it. Look, I'm going directly against Trevor on this one for my lock of the week. I'm taking Georgia on the money line over Alabama, and obviously that means I'm absolutely rooting for Georgia in this game. I am not taking the fan hat off of Notre Dame. I can't bet on something that I can't root for, and so that's never going to happen. And so I would just stay away from it if that was the case. I actually do think Georgia is going to beat Alabama. And Trevor makes great points. Look, there's no doubt to me that Kirby Smart has an Alabama problem. No doubt whatsoever. He absolutely does. He gave you the number. He's 1-7 against Alabama and 0-3 in SEC championship games against the Crimson Tide. Yep, that's true. But every one of those Tide teams in the SEC championship games were coached by a guy named Nick Saban. And Nick Saban ain't walking through that door. All right. I think Kirby Smart is going to get his you-know-what figured out here. And he's going to lay down the law and win this game over Alabama to try and shut some people up. And, look, Kirby and Marcus Freeman, they're bros. Like they respect each other. Kirby's going to come out here and they're going to do Notre Dame a solid here. And they're going to put Alabama away. They're going to allow Notre Dame to jump up to 9, keep that cushion from that school down south. And it's just going to be great. It's going to be roses, and Georgia's going to put away Alabama, and they're going to be the SEC champs. Because, look, it just means more.
I sincerely hope that you are right. I really, 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 really do. All right. Dogs of the week, Vince.
Yes.
Now, I went a different route with this one because championship week is rough. A lot of times we can always find a team like a Virginia Tech that's expected to lose by 19 and then they only lose by 17 or something like that. Championship weekend, I think it's a little different. So I switched it up and I went with a player prop here, Vince.
Okay.
And I'm going back to the Ohio State-Indiana game for my dog of the week. And my dog of the week is a specific person. And that person is Brandon Inniss, an offensive captain for the Ohio State Buckeyes. Okay. His over-under receiving right now is set at 18.5, and I like his over. He is my dog of the week. It seems like every postseason, players step up for their teams that nobody's accounting for. Like, think of those Alabama teams where, like, tight end O.J. Howard was doing, like, kind of okay in the regular season and then had, like, a 200-yard national championship game. You know, I could see something similar of that in a Brandon Inniss because he's been along for the ride. He's one of the older guys on the team. He's been in the Big Ten championship drought. I think that he's going to be a reliable target for Julian Sayin. And I do think IU's defense is going to try to take away Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate outside of Carnell Tate's 27.5-yard catch. But I like Brandon Inniss here as my dog to get over 18 receiving yards in this one.
I like where your head's at. Thinking outside the box, trying to find a guy who would be an underdog with their prop and taking the over. It's a very outside the box way of thinking, but then, you know, my lock of the week, I went with a parlay last week. So I love it. I love the outside the box thinking here, man. I'm down with it. And I think this is a really good one because, you know, when you try to take away the obvious, then the not so obvious is right there for you. And there it is. That's Brandon Inniss. So I dig it. Trev. All right. So my dog of the week, I stayed, with spreads and all that kind of stuff. And there's really only 2 games where the spread is more than 7, which is our rule for dogs of the week. And so I had an option. You either go with Troy plus the 23.5 against James Madison, or you go with BYU plus 12.5 against Texas Tech. And I just got done saying I can't bet on a team that I'm rooting against, excuse me. I'm rooting against BYU. I want them to get absolutely smoke showed. And so I want Tech to cover. I want them to win by 1,001 points. And so I can't take the Cougars plus the 12.5. That just doesn't work for me. It doesn't compute in my very small little brain. So I went with Troy plus 23.5 against James Madison. Look, there's obviously not a ton of games. This is the largest spread of them all. JMU lost their head coach, and apparently they're ready to hire a new one, which is an interesting route that they're taking with Mr. Napier. But, you know, how will they play in this one with swapping of head coaches and things of all, you know, there's a little bit of turmoil going on there. JMU, they got a chance to make the playoffs. So, you know, they're obviously going to be motivated, but how does that translate to the field? Look, the bottom line for me is all they have to do is win this game. They don't have to win it convincingly. They just have to win it. And if they win it, they got a chance of being in the college football playoff. I think that's their focus. Just win the game. I don't know that their focus is going to be win the game by 24 or more points. So I'm taking Troy. I'm getting the 23.5 points, and I'm feeling somewhat good about it. But as Trevor said on the locks of the week, I got a pretty good lead here, and so I'm going to ride it.
I love that. I love it. Well, Vince, that's going to do it for this week's edition of the Spread Option. May the best man win in the locks of the week. And honestly, I hope you're the best man this week for what it all would mean for Notre Dame.
No doubt.
So here's to hoping. But folks, that will do it for us here tonight. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Anybody that you know loves to talk college football, that enjoys betting, any of that, share this podcast with them. We'd love to keep continuing to grow this audience. I think at one point in time, this was like our largest live audience.
I think so.
At one point in time in the show, which is awesome. So appreciate you guys for that. Obviously, all the lines that we get on this show are from our friends over at FanDuel, so you can always check that in. Follow along with us. Enjoy championship weekend. I'm excited for the night game in the Big Ten Championship because, one, it's in the city that I live in, and two, it's the only game really this weekend that I get to be a fan in. So on that note, here's to hoping that everything works out for Notre Dame on Sunday. So go Irish, Archer, OH. That kind of hurt to say, so I wish I could take that back, but it's too late.
You say it. Start it.
OH.
IO.
There you go. There you go, Arch.
As enthusiastic as I can get, man. I'm sorry, but I will be rooting for the Buckeyes, okay?
Oh, man. I will be too, man. I will be too. On your way out of here, hit that like, hit that subscribe, share this podcast with your friends and family. That'll do it for us here tonight on the Spread Option Podcast, brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Have a wonderful evening,